Center Theater's My Fair Lady.
Got them all.
All right. Let's get this show on the road. Okay, first of all, how many of you have seen this production of My Fair Lady? A number. All right, well, for those of you who haven't seen it, director Bart Scher drew a lot from the original play Pygmalion, written by George Bernard Shaw. And this musical is written by Lerner and Lowe, and it's gorgeous, and it's been around for many, many years, about a woman from the streets of London who comes up on her own because, with the help of Henry Higgins, a phonetician, is going to improve how she speaks and make a better life for herself. So now that we got that synopsis out
So
of the
glad
way,
to know what it's about finally. That makes a lot of sense.
I know, right? But speaking of Bart, he was part of our director's roundtable at Playbill, and what he said he likes to do early on is his challenge is to figure out the logic of a show and how it's going to move and what's going to drive it. And so I'm wondering, you know, Harry and Alan, you two were here from the very beginning. What was it like in those very early rehearsals, finding the logic of this production of My Fair Lady?
I felt, that's interesting. I'm sure he had ideas beforehand, we spoke about it, but I felt like we really worked it out as we went through it. I remember that Covent Garden scene took forever, right? Days to establish the logic. When you've got a stage full of hundreds of people, you need to know where they're all standing, and when you're doing a play in the thrust, which is when the stage pushes out into the audience a bit, you have to make sure the sidelines are right and so on. So, it felt like we went step by step, slowly through the play, as he said, working out the logic, and then undoing it all and starting again. And that's what it is. Like, the best idea in the room wins, and we got there eventually. Yeah.
There was a lot of...
Actually, we didn't get there. We were doing previews before we'd even finished properly rehearsing the whole thing. And then we were rehearsing during the previews and doing a show in the evening and worked out what worked and what didn't. Yeah.
And Laura, what was it like stepping into the show, you know, once things have been established in that way?
I'd never done that before, so it was quite a challenging task. Harry was away shooting a Downton Abbey film, so he and I didn't get to rehearse together until the day I went on for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was that was a lot to ask of a person.
It's horrible. I've done it once before, and I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. You're fitting into someone else's shoes.
Yeah, it's hard, and so for me, trying to fit myself into this sort of, it felt like I was jumping onto a moving train, but I was also supposed to be one of the conductors of the train, you know? So that was really challenging, but exciting in the same way. You know, there's no way that I was going to be able to replicate a performance, because that just wouldn't have been interesting for anyone. So the challenge of coming in and not disrupting people's shows too much, but at the same time bringing my own self and my version of this character to life within the context of a show that's already been staged. It's, you know, it's one of the most challenging things I've ever done, but it's my dream part. It's the part I have wanted to play my whole life. You know, when it was first happening, I had just had my daughter, and so I thought, like, okay, well, this is never gonna happen for me, and I made peace with it. And so then when
life comes back around.
Yeah, and it was a really excellent lesson in letting go, you know, that and what's meant to be yours will be yours, and if it's not meant to be, it just won't. So it was.
And she's amazing.
Oh, that's nice.
And I don't think you can't underestimate the strain of this part in particular, because she has the Cockney accent and the other accent and the singing the high notes, and I'm in awe. It's amazing.
No. And the other thing was, going back to the question about the rehearsal, Bart was always very clear that because it's based on Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion, which is about something extremely socially relevant, particularly, right, well, always, but I mean women's rights and so on, and Shaw was an ardent feminist long before his time. So Bart really wanted the play and the piece to be imbued with a real kind of truth, that the characters were really rooted in what their own particular needs were. And I remember he said, telling me early on in rehearsal, he said, look, this is a play with music, it's not a musical comedy. And that's a very sort of interesting and serious thing. And it's a big distinction because it's not like, you know, tits and teeth. It's, well, it is tits.
There's just teeth.
I was going to say it's just tits, but anyway.
That is something that
We've all been written up now.
right?
We're not
Like the My Fair
Danny,
Lady
tell us
panel.
about your tits and teeth.
You know, I did the Cher show, I did Pretty Woman. I would say this was the panel I least thought we would hear about tits and tea, but here we are.
Go Junior.
But you brought up a really important point, which is that Bart is very aware, always, of an audience's response, and that they are that extra ingredient, and that they're bringing what's happening in the outside world with them to the theater every night. And he
Can I just say one
absolutely.
thing? The point that Harry made was really well taken. Having worked with Bart so many times, the best idea in the room wins. And that is a wonderful process at the end of the day. You come in with as much information as you can, no matter the project. You try and make it as honest and as real as possible every moment, but you're not always right. And the best idea in the room wins. And then the audience teaches you a lot as well. It's a really wonderful way of working.
Because he had a bit of time to prepare, he knew everything, but he also brought in an Edwardian scholar who spoke to us about the Flower Girls and what they were going through when they lived without electricity, and he decided to put in the shower scene from the Pygmalion movie to show that, more of that from her point of view. It's an incredible theatre, and we were just given the resources to put everything into it and make it detailed.
And Bart is a very rare animal in directors, in my experience. Is pretty long, is that he really is not afraid to admit that he doesn't know. He comes in and he says, you know what, I don't know how we're going to do this scene. Let's try this, let's try that, you show me. And it's wonderful because it's not false modesty, it's a real, genuine, collaborative feel.
But one of the things that he and I spoke about was that he really wanted to emphasize, you know, like you were saying, this moment in time, the gender rights, the class disparities, and how Shaw really believed in the equality of people, and that it was circumstances that were different, and that it was all about, yes, we're putting Eliza's journey front and center, but there are two plays happening here. You know, Henry Higgins goes through his journey, and Eliza goes through her journey, and are the two main plays, and then even Colonel Pickering and Doolittle. I mean, you go through such incredible arcs here, but having been through the show, Harry, I'll start with you, for, you know, now 10 months, are you still discovering things in Henry Higgins' journey? Does it get deeper for you?
I think the overall arc was there. That's what we worked on, and we played with different versions of, and came to a sort of this is what we think is the best, having tried. But you're right. Within each moment, you're just reacting to what's given to you, what other people are throwing at you, and that changes on a nightly basis. And you take in your characters' sensibilities and sensitivities and work out, and you're in the split second you're working out how they would react in this situation, and that's what changes and keeps it fresh and means I can continue to do it after 10 months without completely losing my mind. I'm fine!
Laura, you mentioned that she was a dream role of yours. What is it about Eliza that you were so drawn to in her? What, other than those songs, what is it about her that she's just that part that you and so many others want to?
Well, a bit of it was nostalgia in that my mother used to play the record for me when I was little, before I was 5. You know, I remember being around 4 years old. One of my first memories is her playing the record and then reading the insert to me. And I just loved Julie Andrews, you know.
Well,
so,
who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Julie Andrews? Monsters. Garbage people. So,
Get out.
Get out. If there's anyone here who doesn't like Julie Andrews, I challenge you to a duel. So there was that, and then as I got older, I love an arc. That's why I loved Gypsy, and as a soprano in the musical theater, a lot of time you were stuck with parts where you're like, and then she swooned. So to have a person with true agency is very interesting and important to me. And to go from A to Z, you know, to truly have an arc and then have to hit all the letters in between, it's a real challenge. And for me, a challenge is fun. That's where
Well, with dreams always comes expectations.
Sure.
What has surprised you most about playing her?
What has surprised me most? I hate to be that person who's like, I'm not really, I knew it would be hard, you know? I didn't come in thinking like, I got this. Like, I knew that it would be a challenge. I think probably the sustained energy, because it's almost a 3-hour show, and so much of the challenging acting bits happens like at the very end. So just to sustain one's energy all the way through, that has been the most challenging thing for me. Because, you know, Harry has young children too, so when you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning with a baby rooster, and then have to, you know, at 11 o'clock at night be like doing the hardest part of your show, it's challenging.
Danny, I want to talk to you because you have taken over just this past week for Alfred so wonderfully.
I want to also say how wonderful Norbert was in the role.
Oh yeah.
Honor it was to take over for him.
Well, we just, I mean, back to back, 2
Guys are
incredibly
also
strong. Yeah, right? They're so nice. Everybody loves each other. But my favorite part about watching you just the other night was the scene where you come to collect on Eliza. You come into Higgins' study and you barge in. And I don't even remember what the line was, but I remember the picture of you. Like, no wait! You know, the stamp and the hat in hand and the desperation on your face. And I'm just, talk to me about what that scene is like to play and what's going through your mind as Alfred, as you're trying to like make the con, but he's caught you first.
Well, I had certain ideas of what the scene was about before I started playing the scene with Harry and Alan, and then they taught me how to play the scene correctly. That's the truth. They when you're on stage with people like that, they make you a better actor. They make you a better human being. You know, in that moment, they really do. They make you an artist. And you have to sort of come up to their level, and that's what I'm trying to do in that moment. And I'm trying to convey many ideas at the same time. They're constantly, I said it earlier in another interview once, you're constantly making lefts when your body wants to go right. And that's what the character's thought process is like. And so you're constantly trying to stay ahead of the idea. And that's been the greatest challenge. That scene, for me, is the hardest scene in the show, because it is there's so many ideas going on at the same time, and yet you want to, at the end of the argument, you want it to make perfect sense. So it's a great challenge, and this afternoon will only be my 8th show, so I'm still learning.
He's fantastic.
Well, he's not a 6-time Tony nominee for nothing.
What it does, so the thing about Shaw, if you do any of these wild, coward Shaw texts, you have to respect the text, you have to allow the audience to be able to hear it, because that's where the humor comes from. They need to hear it, you trust it, and you've got to stay ahead of the audience. And it's like he's been doing it for months. It's amazing.
Alan, I was going to ask you, as Colonel Pickering to Harry's Henry Higgins, you guys have a wonderful dynamic that, again, once Danny comes in, it elevates as the triangulation of the three of you. What's something that Harry's bringing out in you in that scene, and what is Danny bringing out in you in that scene?
Well, the thing about Pickering is, he's often played as a sort of bit of a buffoon, and he's not. And really, he's
You're a buffoon, but he is
That just shines
No,
through
it's true.
naturally.
I mean, I don't really remember.
really playing against time.
Yeah, really playing against time.
But from watching the movie, Colonel Pickering was always like that side character, that guy who started the whole thing, but other than that, And then seeing you in this show, he really is the third player in this.
Well, he's sort of the guy who keeps Higgins honest, in a way. Higgins has no sensitivity in an emotional sense to what he says to anybody, really. He just goes, he drives through, he barges into things. And Pickering actually is the one who he's kind of decent, and he keeps Higgins honest, and he looks after Eliza.
I mean, and she even says, had it not been for Colonel Pickering, I never would have known how ladies and gentlemen behave.
Right.
You know, ultimately, he teaches her.
And so that involves not just kind of, it involves a kind of strength which you have to have, as well as being totally quirky and bizarre and kooky. But in terms of Doolittle, he's very new still, Pickering, in the Higgins household. I mean, he's only been there a day. And this is a complete glorious one of, those theatrical coincidences. They meet in the marketplace and suddenly he says, "Oh, come and live with me." Well, okay, fine. And then suddenly Eliza's father turns up the next day. So in that scene, actually, Pickering is much more a receiver than someone who contributes very much. He has to listen, he takes it all in, and he comes back. He's always like this sort of, this is what you mustn't do. Now come along, But he's slightly thrown by this bizarre intrusion, I think. And it's a wonderful piece of writing by Shaw, and by Lerner Lowe as well. I mean, it's a great scene, which changes tack many times during the scene. You're never quite sure who's running it. Doolittle thinks he is running it, but he's actually not.
Right. Well, that brings me to
In a way.
the fact that the scene takes place in Higgins's study, right? You walk into this majestic place, which, I mean, designed by Michael Jurgen, it's unbelievable. And it's supposed to be intimidating, but one of the things that blows my mind about his design and design in general is that it's not just there to impress you, though it does. It is there because it builds that story, that it creates the aura of who Higgins is. And I'm wondering, what cues did you all take from that set? You know, you as this being your home, you being the guests, how does the majesty of it cue you?
Again, it was a very collaborative, the design of that was very collaborative. He was taking, and Bart, the three of us, were coming up with my space. This has to be my space. He's someone who's ahead of his time. We've got, modern art on the walls for the time. We've got different inventions. We imagined him as someone who had the latest scientific journal.
Right, I remember you were
And
telling
it
me
was
that.
all added. There was just a bare backburns, and we want that there, and I want a pulley, because he likes pulleys. And the next day we had a pulley for putting books up and down. And
Right, which I had said, it seemed to me like, oh, because of course he has, some privilege that he wouldn't want to carry his own books, and you said, no, he's a man of science.
Yeah, sure.
So that it's the invention of it.
And it's fun. And it's like, how can we help, how can we add to our lives through technology? And we were going to have little organs in bottles, but they go off after a certain amount of time. So we've got weird shaped things everywhere, and as a result, it helps my character. It helps build this image of this person, so I don't have to think about it too much. It's just there's stuff that is layered on top that comes from a completely different place.
And I heard some of those, the phonographs and things like that are real. Like
yeah, all the cylinders are real wax cylinders that sometimes go off, which is annoying because you've got the proper sound cues coming on through the speakers, and you've got this something else happening down
like
here.
Actually right next to you.
Actually playing. Something.
And what did you call it? The man cave of the patriarchy.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Is there another set, or Catherine Zuber's costumes are unbelievable. Those completely inform who you are. What you put outside affects what's inside. Is there a moment that you feel most informed by the costume, and it has changed the way you think about that moment?
Yes. If I just pause it. So I go from the tailcoat into the long overcoat that's bagging around, and that's it's quite obvious and simple device to take me from control to zero control.
Well, and the amount of
others
detail also in the set and the costumes and everything else, it makes it extremely easy to feel real, that you're really centered in your character. Because everything around you, I mean, that staircase is incredible. I mean, it's a real room. It's a real room with, incredible weight and depth to it. And I fell asleep once in the chair. Luckily, I did wake up in time to say my line, but only just. And it's really, really comfortable.
But it means you're not faking.
You're not faking.
You can invest in the character,
Exactly.
and
It's just easy.
and it's all real, and it feels real. And there have been shows when there's been horrible, like other stuff going on in my life, and I've just gone in it, and it's been a release. I've been someone else for 3 hours because I feel like I'm in a different world.
Laura, you have to practically jog around that set during the most strenuous song.
That's not the most strenuous song.
Okay, well, the most famous song.
Okay.
What is it like to sing while going through the doors and concentrating on the lines and having it spin beneath your feet?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. It was fun from the first time, Honestly, at the end of the day, it's not rocket science, It's, for me, I feel like ultimately I want to be having a good time. Because I do think that once everything these gentlemen has said is happening, the truth and everything they've been talking about, there also has to be joy. And I am really, really having a good time. And I think that the audience can feel that too. So it's really fun.
I was just going to say, speaking of joy, the moment the orchestra starts playing the notes of that song, you feel that sigh in the
And you hear
house.
singing from the audience.
Sometimes. It's not my preference.
Like an older man. All I want is a room somewhere. I'm like, oh, okay.
What is it about?
She's running around so much backstage with wigs and costume. It's like, she's in a trauma unit, as I am. There's one point in the whole show I worked out that I can get to see them when we're not on stage. And so I do, I come and say, we do a little high five, because literally she's running from, I could have danced all night to get ready for Ascot.
And he's like, good job!
Good job! I just have to put on another coat. Again, she has it much harder than me.
That's not true, though. I will say, I'd never seen the movie because I was, as a small child, was so furious that Julie Andrews was not packed to
Yes.
that I was boycotting the film. And then when I found out that she had won for Mary Poppins the year that, I was like, yeah, no face Audrey Hepburn. I was a very popular kid. But, I will say that the thing that everybody says when they come to see the show, who has seen the show before, is so often Higgins is this sort of blustering old monster person. And Harry.
Is that funny?
But Harry's portrayal is so not that. You know, he's
Right.
so human, and he's playing a genuine person, and it makes it so much more complicated also for everyone else on stage in the best possible way, because it's not just like, well, this is an abusive guy who I don't like, and he's mean and she's nice. It's not that.
No, there's so much humanity.
There's so much humanity
to
to
your
what he's doing,
Higgins.
and it's really it's a real challenge. And yes, of course, vocal gymnastics and running around on a stage is very impressive to watch, but at the same time, it's not any more difficult than what he's doing.
No, I think that that's, you know, what we were saying before about there being two journeys here.
100%.
And really both of them coming through inequality, which is really the whole point of it all.
She'd be called My Fair Lady and her bro.
Well, he's the my of My Fair Lady, right? Who?
Rex.
He did?
Yeah, he didn't like the title.
Wait, what did he want?
I can't remember the story
Oh,
correctly, so
damn.
I'm gonna.
Fanfaroon. They wanted fanfaroon like Brigadoon.
Really?
Yeah.
Fanfaroon.
It's terrible, right?
Yeah. And My Fair Lady, I didn't realize until quite recently, was a play on Mayfair Lady.
Oh.
Right?
Layers.
My fair.
That's good.
Because Cockney would say my fair.
It's interesting because watching, so I did watch the movie, but I always fast forwarded through Higgins' songs. Right. I could not stand them. And now, are you kidding, Harry? I look forward to, I mean, from Why Can't the English Short, but from Ordinary Man,
Yes.
all the way through Grown Accustomed to Her Face, you break my heart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start crying on the stage. I mean, he's marvelous.
When we came to see the show, when Mark was talking to me about this, my husband and I came, and Harry finished singing, and he was like, I think that's the most talented guy I've ever seen.
Well, you and I had spoken. What is it about the Higgins talk, sing, speak, sing? Because you, I do think, sing it more than other Higgins, but
Right.
still, the role seems to want.
Yeah, I think most Higgins, and I've spoken to previous Alex Jennings, who claims to have sung it more than anyone. And I think anyone who
Everyone will claim to have
everyone will
sung
say,
it
well, I
more
sang
than
it
the
the
next.
most. But for the audition and for the first few weeks of rehearsal, I was singing every line. And eventually, our timid MD said, I think you need to start talking something. Because it was written for Rex, who did this style very well.
Couldn't sing.
And because of the range, there isn't much of a range to the songs. It adds colour. And actually, in a lot of the time, it makes more sense with the lyrics. So I found a way of doing it, and that alters occasionally, but it adds dynamism to it. And what I wanted was to create a character who, when he's singing a song, he's not just singing a song. There's a reason he's singing it.